Have you ever wondered why suicide rates, addiction, mental illness, and Alzheimer's have a trajectory for our future that's exponential? Because this is a serious issue. I'm Lamont Wilcox. This is my daughter, Mikkel Wilcox Kaiser. And we're here to share a model with you that is going to completely change the way that you use your brain and free you from that debilitating pattern. We tend to fear some of the biggest catastrophes of all time. World War II, the flu virus that came and wiped out hundreds of thousands, millions of people. As a matter of fact, statistics show that between 80 and 100 million people died during World War II, and similar to the flu virus when it first came out. And these numbers are really overwhelming to us. It's hard to even comprehend what those numbers are. But did you know today that the number of people that are taking their own lives or attempting to take their own lives is actually higher than the number of people that were dying, the rate of deaths during that time? And how different is it to die from, a virus or going to war compared to actually wanting to take your own life?
Yeah, really stop for a second and think about that. We always talk about these tragedies that happen with these events, and we're just like, wow, like that's incredible. Like, I can't believe that's so terrible, blah, blah. And think about someone purposefully doing that, right? This is a very different situation. And just stop and think about what that means to you in your life. Do you know someone who may have suffered from those suicidal ideations or maybe even passed away?
Because during this short video that we're making, about between 6 to 12 people have lost their life with suicide. Every 2 seconds, someone attempts suicide in the world today. I know these are deep, heavy numbers, but they're representations of so much of how we are using our brain and how we're lost in how to use our brain. And so we're so excited to share this model with you so that you can change the way that it's working for you.
And one of the huge reasons, actually the main reason of why we're so excited about this, is because we suffered with our own struggles with mental illness in our family. And it had a huge impact on the way that we were living our lives. And so we spent all of this time researching and putting in the effort to find out new information about how our brain is functioning.
And after living for several years with suicidal ideations as a commonplace in our family, it's really created this passion in me to really search for and look for answers to why so many things that we tried didn't have a lasting effect and that things would keep coming back. And I don't know if you felt that before, but we want to tell you that there's new things, new ways to actually make changes yourself that will change everything for you.
And we're talking about hours and hours of incessant research looking into these new concepts and new ideas that the neuroscientists have been putting out to figure out and fix this problem.
Because someone introduced to me this concept of neuroplasticity and the ability for the brain to unwire and rewire itself and change its perceptions and belief systems around its environment and what's happening to it, which I realized is the key to mental health struggles. It's their vision of their reality that really is the issue.
And notice how he said key. The key to all mental health struggles, right? We're making bold statements here because we've seen results. Because during that time, after putting together all this new research, and we're talking 500 pages of research a day coming out, of analyzing the research and taking and breaking apart bits and pieces of it all to bring together a model of how to really apply everything that we're learning. Because that's one of the biggest things, is taking action on the new science that's coming out.
And as I was doing this research, and I was able to do this full time because I was financially able to give it all of my effort and doing it day in and day out, I was finding the key points that I saw between the neuroscientists and the psychologists that would have the biggest impact to help someone to understand how their framework of how the core of their brain functions and works in a way that would change them. And I was very lucky because as I put this together and started using it with myself, my family, my friends, my neighbors, and saw this result that was happening at a very quick pace, I was able to talk to a doctor, Dr. Oliver, who is a functional neurologist in Lehigh, Utah. And I was able to explain that to him, and he saw that as like aligning with everything he'd learned about neurology. And he was quite successful with neurology. And not only that, but his office had gained a reputation of their initial focus was on people with traumatic brain injuries. But they kept getting people coming back saying that their mental health struggle had been resolved, or that their addiction, they were more easily able to overcome this addiction. And so he built this reputation to have people that were in these stages of trying to work through their mental struggles. And so he was getting more and more patients that were coming in specifically for addiction, for mental health struggles.
And we're talking about almost all mental disorders. Anxiety and depression are the precursors to all mental illnesses. So we're talking OCD, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorders in general.
Things that come from traumatic experience, and even things as extreme as schizophrenia and mania.
PTSD, social anxiety, eating disorders.
All types of personality disorders, and especially the suicidal ideations that are so common today. So one of the things that I found in the research is the neuroscientists were looking out there and saying, okay, so we think the reason the psychologists are struggling to solve these problems is because they're not describing the problem accurately. Because they are looking at all these different things and putting all these labels and saying they have this, they have that, they have this. But the neuroscientists would say that's actually not the core of the problem. Those are all symptoms to a deeper problem.
And we like to talk about this in 3 phases. The first phase is pain and suffering. So all those mental illnesses cause pain and suffering. And even just, feelings of pain and suffering like anger, frustration, suicide ideations. I mean, all of those things are pain.
And so that first phase is when people go to get help because they feel that they're in the pain. And I'd argue that a lot of people are learning how to deal with pain and just not going to get help. And I think there's a lot of research out there to back that up, that there's a lot of people struggling with mental health struggles that aren't going out and getting help because they're just learning that, oh, the pain is just a part of life. And that's all they're doing about it. And so that first phase is pain. The second phase is to learn to get out of the pain. And that's what most of the modalities, most of the therapies, most of all the different things, whether it's mainstream or out of the mainstream and the alternative ways, they're still trying to get someone to feel better. And that is what the neuroscientists would say is probably why they're not solving the problem.
And so phase 2 is trying to get in a place of relief or comfort. And so that could be focusing on all the different strategies to be able to get yourself out of that pain and suffering place. But a lot of the times when we focus on those symptoms, we're actually treating just the symptoms. And a lot of the times those don't last. If you start getting good sleep for a long time, are you going to be able to get good sleep forever?
Not only that, but when you're trying to solve a symptom, sometimes the methodologies create collateral damage. They actually have side effects that aren't helpful. So there are a lot of attempts to try to help people that make things worse. And maybe some of you know this, somebody who went in for therapy or some other thing, and it actually triggered a lot more stuff in the background and behind it all.
So this could be therapy, medications, diets, sleep patterns, all these different modalities and things that we try to get ourselves out of that pain stage.
And even alternatives like energy healing and foot zone and yoga and meditation and exercise. Like there's a whole list of things that we're being taught. And I'm not against these. These are great things. But their target, it tends to not reach the real core of the issue, which the neuroscientists would say is in the brain. It's in our nervous system. Because as Jordan Peterson says, our nervous system never lies. But we don't speak the language of the nervous system. So this model is to help us get to phase 3, when we're actually building a new identity that drives new thought patterns and meets new chemical needs, so that we don't need that old chemical need. It's true fulfillment in life. It's tapping in to our capabilities in how our brain and how our nervous system works.
And even think about the difference between when you're trying to deal with or cope with these mental illnesses. Nobody wants to hear that they have to suffer with this mental illness the rest of their life, and that you're just trying to cope with and deal with it from now on.
But the brain works on a chemical system. And this chemical system is what's being thrown off. We're being taught from our childhood and as our brain was developed to meet these chemical needs through certain thought processes and behaviors.
Because your brain, it functions on a neurological chemical reward system. And so when you get stuck in these old patterns, because the foundational way of your brain was created when you didn't have any choices around how your beliefs and patterns were being created. And so you're kind of stuck with this foundational way of thinking to go throughout the rest of your life. And that reward system is based on who knows what, your environment and how you were grown up and how your brain developed. And so your brain is working off a reward system. And when you do different behaviors like frustration, anger, and all different mental illnesses, your brain is actually getting a chemical reward for those behaviors. And so they're addicted to those behaviors. Your brain is addicted.
And so in a way, in a very direct and definitive way, the trauma that we talk about when we experience trauma was actually implanted into us in our child development, in the development of our brain. So these traumatizing events, we call them, aren't actually the trauma. The trauma was already in us, and the event brought it out. And so now the trauma happens, and the brain goes to those childhood patterns to pull out to get those chemical needs met, to pull out those belief systems so that the chemical needs get met. But they don't get met fully, and that's what creates the addictive pattern. And when a neuroscientist looks at the brain, and it looks at the different areas of the brain, and what's active and how it's acting with someone who's having an addictive behavior towards substance abuse or behaviors that are addictive, and someone who has a mental health issue, that actually looks almost the same. So the chemical needs of the brain are what are being met through these belief systems and patterns.
And in our F.L.Y program, we're not talking about just getting through a couple old patterns. We're talking about completely replacing that foundational way of thinking that we were created as a child, and those patterns that aren't serving us and are not helping us, obviously from all of those, that list of mental illnesses that we talked about, and really going in and taking out that foundational way of thinking, like going really deep, going to the core, and then reconstructing it. And we're not talking about just fixing a couple old habits or patterns that are just in our way. We're talking about going deep, getting to the core of all these things.
And so our program, that's about a 3-month program, but starts out with a real intensive learning process. It's actually deconstructing the old framework by introducing new concepts and perceptions and beliefs about the brain and how the brain works.
And this isn't just going in and talking with someone else, a facilitator, and them working on you. This is your understanding how your brain works and is functioning, and then you're the one who's going in and deconstructing that old framework.
And this isn't going back to your childhood. We want to clarify that these patterns are playing out right now. They're getting needs met right now. So you don't have to go back to your past experiences, and you don't have to go discover and relive or reprocess. This isn't EMDR or any of the processing of bringing out these old things. It's about what's going on right now in your life and how your brain is meeting its needs right now. So what we do is the brain has a basic framework that holds it in place the way it is. And so this model is to help you little by little remove the different pieces of framework that's holding that brain up until it falls and completely gives it to you to now reconstruct so that you can start using your own brain in a new way. And we've been able to help hundreds and hundreds of people to overcome major mental illnesses in a really, really short time. The 2 years that I was in that office with Dr. Oliver, I was able to help hundreds of people. Our success rate was over 90% with people who are suicidal, people, all the things we listed earlier, people who had experienced all of those things in oftentimes just one visit, one day we would spend with them to overcome that. This new plan and this new model is much more extensive and thorough to help every single person.
And think about that for a second, the acronym F.L.Y. Fulfill life yourself. So you're the one who is learning about your own brain, your own patterns, your own struggles, and is becoming the doctor, in a sense, of your brain and going in and fixing all those different parts. You don't have to rely on anyone else. You don't have to rely on any strategies. It's all within you. You're fulfilling life yourself.
And it helps get us to this place of freedom, empowerment. and to get out of the old thinking of victimization, where we feel like everything has happened to us. And this helps you realize that everything is happening for you. Those traumatic events are actually to pull out parts and pieces of your thought patterns that are not helping you in your daily life, and actually lifting you to a much higher level of thriving and living in a high state of mind.
And we also want to mention that this is fun. This isn't this painful process of going back into your past and rehashing all of that. This is going and moving forward. And each time you break down one of those walls or those barriers, it's fun because you're feeling how different it is to feel your new brain, in a sense. Like you're going through this process and you're progressing and you can see it within yourself. And so it actually gives you lots of enthusiasm to keep moving forward and excites you in the process.
It also allows you to go back to any type of modality or any type of therapy or anything that you're doing and understand more deeply what it's trying to accomplish on a conscious level. And therefore, allowing those modalities and those things, whether you just love to do yoga or meditation, or you have a great therapist or any of those things, you can assure that those things will have a much higher effect on you, because your conscious mind now knows what your subconscious needs to make changes. And so then you purposefully assist. As a matter of fact, even subconsciously will assist any of these modalities to succeed at a way higher level, because your understanding alone changes the experience.
And so what we provide is we have an extensive program that is extensive for a reason, so that every person on whatever level that they're on can get to that point of really understanding their brain and being able to use the model in their life to really fulfill life themselves. And so that's why we've put together a program for everyone to go through.
And we want to make clear too that we've mentioned a lot of really extreme and intense mental illnesses throughout this video. But we want to also emphasize that everyone is living in a way that they don't understand their brain. So if you don't understand your patterns, you don't understand how your brain's working, your brain is being programmed constantly by your environment, and you don't know it. Everything that's happening has programmed you and is programming you. Whether, it was your parents as a child, it was your siblings, it was your television, it was all the social media or media in general, all the advertising, all the marketing that has driven our society to be what it is actually programming that's come into you. So if you want to just succeed at life at a higher level, our process it's literally a self-analysis that allows you to recognize and see and change the patterns that help you get to the life that you truly want at a 10 times, 100 times X higher level of success. It's really a pattern of success. If we can show your brain what success is, then it will start doing it more. Your conscious mind, once it grasps what success is, what the process of success is for you, it will embrace that because it meets those chemical needs. And it is fascinating to watch people's lives change, to watch people start to live the life they want, to get calls from people that say, not only am I off all my meds, but my business has taken off, my relationships have taken off, everything in my life that I care about is 10x. It's just doing so much more. I had someone reach out recently and he said his business had everything he'd talked about in the session as he went through the program was all happening. He had been discovered and life was just taking off and he was just loving it, just loving life to the fullest. And that's what we provide, is we help people go to that other extreme. Instead of just finding comfort in phase 2 and then being satisfied with that comfort, it's about totally going to the next level. And this model is the key to getting there.
And so if this is really resonating within you, and take a minute to tune into your own guidance system and think about the things that we've talked about. And you don't have to get this information from us or our program, but keep searching, right? We hope that this video gave you hope, that there is a way that you can change the circumstances that are happening in your life. And so if this really resonated with you, go to our website, because we have different events that we're constantly doing to help you get to that point. We also have different links to our YouTube channel, and you can go and watch different testimonials of people who have been through our whole F.L.Y program.
And both on our website, our YouTube channel, we're also on social media with Facebook and Instagram, and getting in that and making it more a part of your life is the key. getting your attention towards this thing. And we want to help you with that. And so we have an event called Learn to Fly, where you come and you go deeper into this and you discover more about this model, more about our experiences, and you get to meet people who've been through it. And you can ask them questions. And we actually have hundreds of people that are happy to share their experience, really happy and excited to share their experience with you. And if you reach out to us, we can get you connected to them. And you can go and talk to them and figure it out yourself. Decide for yourself. This is for you to decide. And the one thing that will get in the way that is one of the most powerful things is that programming that's already in you that distracts you and makes you doubt. That doubt is typically, that hesitation that doubt creates is typically the thing that holds us back the most in life. So while you're thinking about this, while it's on your mind, make a decision right now to take an action, whatever that action is. And whether that's with us or with someone else or going whatever direction, make a commitment to take an action, believe in taking an action, and having hope that there is something. Because the one thing that happens when people start to have those suicidal ideations, when they start to decide that they're not worth living, is because they have given up. They've given up hope. But that giving up hope, I just want to explain, is a process in the brain that we're addicted to. It's a potential release from all the pressure we feel. But it doesn't actually work. It doesn't work. And to think that way doesn't work. But there is something that does work. And this model teaches it. So if you know anyone who's struggling with these more extreme things especially, please share this video with them. Reach out. We're discussing and we're presenting this in a way to help people to start to have new hope. And if it provided new hope in you, and you can overcome those doubts and those hesitations you have, that is what's going to make the difference. The people who come into this program that have, the most impact in their life, they embrace it because they recognize their brain is getting new chemical needs met that are much better than the old ways of meeting those needs through those old patterns. So we are excited to have you at one of these events. We'd love to meet you in person. It'll be so fun. And someday you'll hear stories of these other clients that we've had, and someday you'll be telling your story and you'll be changing lives with your story. So we're excited to see you there. Thank you so much for your time, and continue on. Don't stop here because the video ends. Keep going.